Good evening. Welcome, everyone. I'm Mark Robbins, the president of the American Academy in Rome. This is probably one of our favorite evenings because we get to welcome the Rome Prize winners for the next year. So it's a great evening of celebration and a lot of joy. You can see it behind the trepidation in the faces. You can see it behind the smiles. And I'd like to welcome you all on the behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Academy. We're pleased to have the family of the fellows and friends of the wider Academy community. I also want to acknowledge the long-time supporter of the Academy and this evening's event, Janet Ross, who is somewhere through the spot. I'd love to give Janet a thank you, Janet. And also our a major supporter for the Conversation series, the Helen Frankenthaler Foundation. And Elizabeth Smith is with us tonight. Thank you for your support. Through the Helen Frankenthaler Foundation, we've been able to bring the Conversation series not just to audiences in New York that showcases the work of our fellows and our residents, but across the country, and that's been incredibly valuable, so thank you. Next fall, there's going to be an exhibition at the Academy in our galleries, and it's organized by Lindsay Harris, who's our Mellon professor. And it's going to be about the southern Italian city of Matera. Matera, as you may know, is going to be the City of Culture in 2019, so this is in advance of that. And as part of the research for the catalog, I picked up Christ Stopped at Eboli, which is by Carlo Levi, a fantastic text. And it's really an iconic depiction of the year that the author spent in Basilicata in the mid-1930s. And he depicts his own shock as a northerner coming from an intellectual Jewish family in Turin, being banished to the south for a year. And that was his punishment for being a dissident in 1935, being an anti-fascist, as this was considered the worst thing that could happen. You know, rather than imprisonment, it was exile to the south. And during that year, he writes of his intimate experience in great detail, the lives of the people, the landscape, the customs in Basilicata, which was to him a remarkably primitive place, a much older Italy, a pre-Risorgimento place that was actually ruled by the Spanish up until the 1800s, a place in which people, by their own admission, barely felt Italian and really not Christian at all. They like to say, well, Christ never made it this far. He stopped at Eboli just before reaching them. And it was 12 years later, during the last days of World War II, when Levi was in hiding in the divided, partisan city of Florence. This is about 12 years later, and he wrote about this experience, and he said, "It was there that I began to unwind the thread of memory, discovering not only the events of the past, but the infinite poetic contemporaneity of all time and every destiny." And it struck me as I was thinking about this ceremony tonight, the presence of the past and the way in which we think about the present, about the vividness of the present, and how we think about the future. And here was this young writer in a place which represented the intersection of Paleolithic, Byzantine, German and Norman, Aragonese and Orsini. And the history was so vivid for him as an outsider. And he had the kind of clarity that displacement often brings. Years later, 20 years later, in an introduction to a later published volume of this same book, he wrote about that time in Basilicata or as it was known then, Lucania. And he said he discovered a motionless world, and I quote, "a motionless world of possibilities, at once infinite and closed, the dark adolescence of centuries poised to stir and emerge like butterflies from the cocoon." He learned the individual eternity of all of this, the Lucania within each of us, the vital force that's ready to turn itself into life and form. And once again, thinking about this in relationship to Rome, thinking about where you'll all be in September, where you'll be launching yourself from the familiarity of the United States to Rome. And you'll also be displaced, but displaced as a group of individuals with your own experiences, your own memories. And as Carlo Levi discovered his personal Lucania, you will discover your own Rome, your own personal lens for this city, as individuals have for centuries. And that's the remarkable thing about this time of Way. You're separate, but together in a community made up of people who are also questioning, also thinking about what it means to be in the dense palimpsest of Rome, but from their specific point of view. And the ability to share this within the community is the remarkable power of being at the Academy. And it will yield things about your work that you never imagined, and it will also give your audience, the people who read or look at and listen to what you've made during the year, something which perhaps has never existed before, something new. And this is also a gift of the time at the Academy. So we all wish you the best and the most productive time there, in whatever way that time is productive for you in your time in Rome. So I'd like to thank those who helped make this all possible. And really, I have to thank our staff in New York and in Rome. Many of you have met, or at least on the phone, the people who, from the time you first applied to getting here this evening, to making visa arrangements to go to Rome, you've already had conversations and you understand how supportive the staff really are. I'd also like to recognize our trustees, a remarkably engaged and committed group. And I'd like to ask them all just to raise their hands so that you can see who they are. And I'd like us to give them a round of applause. Thank you. You know, the Academy is on the edge of its second, some say its third century, depends on how you parse it. And it continues to evolve as an institution, and that's really the nature of institutions. Any institution changes, but there is always a succession at the Academy. It's part of our cycle, and it is bittersweet that our current director, Kim Bowes, who can't be with us tonight because she's giving a talk in Scotland, unfortunately, but she is at the end of her term, and our loss is the gain for the University of Pennsylvania, unfortunately, where she returns to teach this fall. Kim has been masterly and energetic and a wonderful leader and a touchstone in Rome, a wonderful partner for me throughout the past 3 years. But we are pleased to welcome John Oxendorf. John, would you raise your hand? John is a 2008 fellow, and he will be joining us as the new director coming in July with his family. Welcome. And I'm so glad that you're with us tonight and that you'll be joining us for the years to come at the Academy in Rome. And without further delay, I'd I'd like to ask Mary Margaret Jones, our distinguished chair of the Board of Trustees and a 1997 fellow, to come to the podium and to do the formal presentation of our 2017-2018 fellows. Mary Margaret. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mark. Today, the Board of Trustees did, if not their most, well, I would say their most important job of the year, but definitely their most enjoyed job of the year, the most pleasurable thing that we do, because it reminds us why we devote our time and other resources to keeping this institution alive, healthy, and well, and that is reviewing the candidates as fellows, those who were chosen by the juries, and then approving those selections. Everybody was approved, by the way, so glad you're all here. Somebody asked today if anyone ever had not been, and no one could think of a case except maybe one in the distant past. So congratulations. We're so happy for you. Not only is the audience full of trustees and friends of the Academy, there are a number of fellows in the audience, past fellows, and when you meet them, you'll know them by the looks in their eyes as they look at you, with a combination of pleasure and happiness for you, and great sadness and a touch of jealousy that they aren't going with you. So it's such a great experience. You will be touched and changed for the rest of your lives. Your work will be changed by being in Rome. It will also be changed by each other. And your lives will be changed by being in Rome and by each other. Some of you more than others. Some of you might meet your life's partner as your fellow trustee, as I did. I mean, fellow, as I did. And it continues, yeah. But all of you will remember this year or 2 or 6 months for the rest of your lives, and it will stay with you always. And when you see each other afterwards, you'll have that look in your eyes, and you'll know and you'll connect. They'll have that special look that no one else understands, and everyone else will get tired of hearing about. So you can relish it with each other more than you can with everyone else. So with that, it is my great pleasure to try not to butcher everyone's names as much as possible, and to introduce to the audience the next year's Rome Prize Fellows. So we start with Ancient Studies. This is our lineup, so you can see how many names I'm going through tonight. So we start with Ancient Studies, and we start with Michelle Barenfeld, who is receiving the Dorothy and Louis B. Coleman National Endowment for the Humanities Postdoctoral Rome Prize, and her project At Home in the City, the Neighborhoods of the Urban Elite in the Late Roman Empire. Then Catherine E. Bonosho, the Emmeline Hill Richardson Predoctoral Rome Prize, whose project is Foreign Holidays and Festivals as Representative of Identity and Rabbinic Literature. And then year 1 of a 2-year fellowship. So Liana Brent is the one you'll all hate at the end of the year, because you're going home and she's not. She's the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation Samuel H. Kress Foundation Predoctoral Rome Prize, and her project is Corporeal Connections, Tomb Disturbance, Reuse, and Violation in Roman Italy. And then the Andrew High School Postdoctoral Rome Prize to Lauren Donovan Ginsberg, whose project They Will Sing of You and Me, Lucan as Caesar's Epic Successor. I love the poetry of that title. And then the Arthur Ross Predoctoral Rome Prize, Kevin Mock, whose project Coium Pecos, Representations of Italian Identity in Virgil's Eclogues, Georgics, and Aeneid. And the Irene Rosenzweig Lily Auchincloss Samuel H. Kress Foundation Predoctoral Rome Prize, year 2. So she's already there. So when you get there, she's the one who can give you all the goods, where you get the best pizza, et cetera, et cetera. And her project is Daedala Tecta Architectural Terracottas and Cultural Memory in Republican Italy. So next we go to architecture. The Founders Rome Prize goes to Brandon Clifford, whose project is Ghosts of Rome. So stay tuned. And then the Arnold Bruner Catherine Edwards Gordon Rome Prize to Keith Crumwitty, a pattern book of houses for a world after the end of work. And I think you'll find something to have in common with one of the Italian fellows who I'll be introducing as well. In design, the Mark Hampton Rome Prize to partners, Jennifer Birkeland and Jonathan Shelsa, whose project is the Roman roofscape, the atrium as landscape, and urban infrastructure. Love the eyebrows. And then the Cynthia Hazen Polsky and Leon Polsky Rome Prize to Tricia Tracy, whose project Modes, Methods of Dialogue, Collaboration. Landscape architecture, my field, I have to say. The Garden Club of America Rome Prize to Rosetta Elkin and her project Shorelines, the Case of Italian Stone Pine. And the Prince Charitable Trust Roland Rome Prize to Allison B. Hirsch and Uruziak Gabrielian for their project Rome, Real and Imagined, Cinematic Fictions and Future Landscapes. In Historic Preservation and Conservation, the Charles K. Williams II Rome Prize goes to Lisa de Leonardis for a transatlantic response to Worlds That Shake, Jesuit contributions to anti-seismic building design in early modern Italy and Peru, and I am so glad you're going to be there at the same time as John Oxendorf. This couldn't be more perfect. And, oops, I'm off one. So there's Lisa. And then the Booth Family Rome Prize to Liz Shevchenko and her project Confronting Denial, Preservation for a Post-Truth Era. Literature. We have the Joseph Brodsky Rome Prize, a gift of the Drew Hines Trust, going to Ishun Hutchinson. The project is School by the Clift, sorry. And T. Geronimo Johnson with the John Guare Writers Fund Rome Prize, a gift of Dorothy and Louis B. Coleman, Pilot of the Great Machine. Next, we go to Medieval Studies. Donald and Maria Cox, Samuel H. Kress Foundation Pre-Doctoral Rome Prize. Again, this is year one of a 2-year fellowship. The rest of you eat your hearts out. Anna Majeski, and the project is Visualizing the Cosmos from 14th Century Padua, from Francesco da Barberino to Giusto de Menaboi. We love these images today, by the way. And the Millicent Mercer Johnson Postdoctoral Rome Prize goes to Bisera Pincheva. Let me try that again, Pincheva, right? Animation and Medieval Art. Love the idea of the movement of light to animate. And then the Phyllis W.G. Gordon Lilly Auchincloss Samuel H. Kress Foundation Pre-Doctoral Rome Prize, year 2 of a 2-year fellowship. So Joseph is already there, Joseph Williams, who's working on the practice and production of architecture during the Mediterranean Commercial Revolution, the Church of San Corrado in Molfetta, circa 1185 to 1303. So that takes us to modern Italian studies. We're making our way forward in time. Leslie Coetzee, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation National Endowment for the Humanities Postdoctoral Rome Prize. FRA, Relation and Collaboration in Contemporary Italian Art. And Diana Garvin, the Paul Mellon, Andrew W. Mellon Foundation Postdoctoral Rome Prize, Black Milk, Colonial Foodways, and Intimate Imperialism. And the Marion and Andrew High School Predoctoral Rome Prize goes to Jessica Gabriel Peretz. The Lyric Mode of Voice, Song and Subjectivity in Italy, 1769 to 1815. And that's a good transition to musical composition. The Frederick A. Juilliard Walter Damrosch Rome Prize goes to Susan Farron. The project is The Hour of the Star, and I'm sorry you don't have the benefit that we had today of hearing a bit of her work. Really beautiful, very, very moving. And the Samuel Barber Rome Prize goes to Ashley Fury, Project Da Vinci Shaken, and very different. We love hearing how different the composer's works are each year, so we're looking forward to the range that will come out of next year. It will be stupendous. Renaissance and Early Modern Studies, the Anthony M. Clark Predoctoral Rome Prize goes to Raymond Carlson. His project is Michelangelo Between Florence and Rome, Art and Literary Culture in 16th Century Italy. And the American Academy in Rome Prize to Cecil Fromont, Images on a Mission. Is it Cecily? Cecile, sorry. Images on a Mission, Cross-Cultural Encounters and Visual Mediation in Early Modern Congo and Angola. And we passed around one of those watercolors about which she will be studying, and it's really fascinating, and I think you're going to find parallels with some of the work being done by the design, at least one of the design fellows. Visual arts. The Harold M. English Rome Prize goes to Sanford Biggers, whose project Spolia will be about redefining ways of looking at sculpture. A hint here. And the Chuck Close, Henry W., and Marion T. Mitchell Rome Prize to Abigail DeVille, New Monuments to Forget the Future. And the Jules Guerin Rome Prize goes to Rochelle Feinstein, Color Therapy, Working Title. And the Abigail Cohen Rome Prize to Alan Frame, Portraits in Roman Gardens. I love this idea. And to Beverly McGeever, the Joseph H. Hazen Rome Prize, Impact of Place. And I love this. Bev's like, I'm just going to be there and let this place impact my work. You may have noticed there's quite a few women next year. The majority next year. Sort of interesting. It's now my pleasure to also introduce the Italian Fellows. And the Italian Fellows are funded separately by the gala we have in Rome each year. And we feel very strongly about having some fellows there who are Italians to add to the mix of the community. We choose them with various methods. They come to us in various ways from Italy, and we rotate some of the disciplines each year. So next year, the Franco Zeffirelli Italian Fellow in Renaissance and Early Modern Studies goes to Veronica Coppolo toward a new edition of Vittorio Colonna's Correspondence. She was a female intellectual in Italy. And Federico Gardella is awarded the Marcello Lotti Italian Fellow in Music, and he'll be working on a piece for mandolin, concert for mandolin and strings. And Fosco Lucarelli, the NL Italian Fellow for Architecture, Urban Design, and Landscape Architecture, who will be working on Horizontal Rome. And Ra Di Martino, the Eye, the Ear, and the Mouth, receiving the CRT Italian Fellow in Visual Arts. That, by the way, Star Wars set. And Alessandro Di Pietro, the Cy Twombly Italian Fellow in Visual Arts, Natives, Nameless, and Ruins. And finally, the Italian Fellow in Ancient Studies, Emilio Rosamilia, the Cyrene Political, Sacred, and Economic History. So I would ask, I think now, for all the fellows to please stand, and we'll give you a round of applause.